Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new year going around the Ogham Grove. Although today is the 30th of December 2025, not yet New Year's Day in the Gregorian calendar. Today is the day when the sun enters the days of the birch tree. So for the Ogham Grove year wheel, this is the first day of the year, if you like. Every tree has 18 degrees of the sun's ecliptic. So throughout the year, it goes from tree to tree to tree. And that process begins today on the 30th of December, 2025, is the beginning of the year wheel that's going to be 2026. So I'm just going to bring my PowerPoint presentation up. The birch tree is the first tree in the Ogham sequence. Okay. Its Gaelic name is Beth, though I say Beith. I think we are allowed our regional dialects, but Beth is the correct Irish pronunciation for it. So today we're going to begin a brand new cycle around the year, and we're going back to the roots this year. And by that, primarily looking at the medieval word kennings for each of the Ogham trees. And I think this is important because there's a lot of misinformation on the internet about the Ogham being a year wheel, about it being a tree calendar, and so on. And I'm going to explain some of that just so you're equipped to deal with any challenge or criticism from other people. So the word kennings are important because for people that want to use the Ogham, like the runes, and do Ogham readings with twigs from a pouch or pebbles from a pouch with Ogham letters written on, the word kennings are the original descriptions of each Ogham. So just like the runes, the meanings of the Elder Futhark runes are very simple. So they have a rune that just means birch tree, and there's a rune that just means cattle, and there's a rune that just means ice, or torch or horse. So they have simple symbols, really simple symbols that you then learn how to use for a reading. And the Ogham is the same. So for the 20 letters of the Ogham, there are word kennings for each letter. Now, the earliest writing that we have about the Ogham is from a book called the Book of Ballymote, which is 14th century. So about 1390 AD is as far as anybody can go with evidence of what each letter of the Ogham means. And that's what we're going to look at. Not tonight, all of it, but tonight we're just looking at the birch tree. And what would a birch tree mean, or what would the Ogham for birch tree mean if it came up in a reading? So it's about developing what I call your own bank of symbols. So when someone's using the runes and they pull the rune that means torch, well, what does that mean in a reading? What advice is torch? So they actually have a whole load of other paragraphs of information in their mind that is triggered by the word torch. A light in the darkness, leading the way, creative fire and all those things. So this is the Ogham equivalent. Now, one of the criticisms to debunk is that some people say that the Ogham isn't a system of 20 trees. It isn't a tree alphabet. Now, that's not true. So we can debunk that one straight away. It came about as a reaction to a book called The White Goddess by a writer called Robert Graves. And he came up with a tree calendar of 13 trees based on the Ogham. It doesn't matter so much, but that got debunked by academia, and they threw the baby out with the bathwater, saying that there's no such thing as a tree alphabet. Well, that's not true. There is such thing as a tree alphabet, and we'll look at the evidence for that. It's the oldest evidence there is for the Ogham. But first of all, the first Ogham letter, which you can see on the left-hand side in the veil of the dryad there, it's a vertical line with a half line going off to the right. And that's the symbol Beth. And Beth literally means birch tree. So not all of the Ogham letters mean a tree, but the first one does. And in Welsh, I don't know how you would pronounce it, Bedouin, and in Breton, Beswn, and then it's cognate with the Latin betula. So it's just the Gaelic or Irish equivalent of betula, Beth, the birch tree. The common birch tree of the British Isles and Ireland is the silver birch. The silver birch is called Betula pendula. Its thin branches hang down like pendulums, so Betula pendula. And that's the silver birch, though now we have many different types of birch in Britain. A very popular one is the one with the tree trunk and the bark is like paper. You can peel it off, that one. And that's actually an American species. That's called American white birch or paper birch, and it's very popular in Britain now, but it's not the original silver birch. The silver birch can be silvery to look at, especially under the moonlight, but sometimes, depending on its environment, it can be quite just dark grey and mottly, so not always silvery. Now, on the right-hand side, and jumping ahead a little bit, if you place the 20 Ogham letters in a circle, you end up with a sacred circle, which also represents the year. And each of the 20 trees of the Ogham hold a position in the year. Now, there's already a playlist on the YouTube channel for the Ogham Grove of Ogham for Beginners, and there's a short video there called the Ogham Code, and you can go and look at that, and it explains the year wheel. So another criticism, a reaction by academics to Robert Graves, is that there was no such thing as a tree calendar. So that some will say there's no such thing as a tree alphabet. There is. And other people will say the Celts never had a tree calendar. That's neo-paganism. Well, beg to differ. And my argument in favor of a tree calendar is the video I've just mentioned called the Ogham Code. Now, simply, you just put 20 trees around in a circle and it gives you your year wheel. And in the past 5 years or more, we've found tons of fascinating patterns in the year based on star lore and mythology and the tree's position in the spring, the summer, the autumn, the winter. And these are all elements that build up in your bank of symbols. So when you pull a twig out of a pouch and it's the birch twig, it doesn't just mean birch tree, it means its position in the year, its seasonal significance, its mythological significance. And we'll look at that further on. So here's one of the main nails in the coffin for people that say there's no such thing as a tree calendar. Each individual letter in the Ogham is called a fid. That's a singular, or feda is plural. And the word fid or fedder means wood, tree, or woods and trees. So it's just singular and plural. And originally there were 20 fedder, 20 letters of the Ogham. And then in the medieval days, 5 more were added, and they're known as the four-fedder. Four-fedder literally means additional trees. So the very fact that each letter in the Ogham alphabet is called a tree or a wood should negate anyone saying there's no such thing as a tree alphabet. The Ogham, the original 20, was divided into 4 groups of 5. So you get 5, 5, 5, and 5. And each group of 5 is known as an achma. An achma is just Irish for a group or a set of something. So first set of 5, second set of 5. The first set begins with the birch tree, Beth. So it's known as the achma Beth. The birch trees group of 5, if you like. And then in modern usage, people use the word few or fuse. And that's just a modern adaptation of fid and fedder. So it's the same meaning, really, just means so you can call your individual twigs in your pouch fuse. You can call one twig in your hand a few, or you can go Gaelic and say fid or fedder. So it's just up to you. That's that bit. So here we are then. This is the nuts and bolts of the written evidence. There were 3 groups of word kennings that date back to the Book of Ballymote, or at least 2 of them do. I've separated them here. The main word for them is Briatharogaim. Briatharogaim simply means word Ogham. And what they were 2 word phrases to give an explanation for each letter or fid of the Ogham alphabet. And in the Book of Ballymote, which is 1390, 2 lists of word kennings are given. The first one is, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, I'm not an Irish speaker. So the first one looks like Moraine Macmoin, or Moyne, is the first person's word kennings. And then there's another group of word kennings by someone called Make Ind Ok, or Make Ind O. Don't know how to pronounce it. Both of those are in the Book of Ballymote. Both of those date to 1390. And they're the kind of word kennings that we look at. Later on, round about the 16th or 17th century, a 3rd group of word kennings was found, and they're called the Concolin word kennings, or Briatharogaim. So they've got three sets of word kennings for each Ogham letter, or each tree in the Ogham. The contention then comes that with these word kennings, not all 20 of them describe trees. Some describe different things, like one is fear, as in terror, fear. Another one is a metal ingot. Another one is sulfur. So whereas round about 9 or 10, it's a bit hazy, 9 or 10 are definitely trees. The other 11 or 12 are questionably not trees. However, also in the Book of Ballymote is something at the bottom here that Orakept Nanekis is also in the Book of Ballymote, and it describes each letter of the Ogham as a tree. So the word kennings date to 1390, and also the Orakept dates to the 1390. Book of Ballymote, and it's the Orakept that gives us the 20 trees that we use in the Ogham Grove. So we've used that traditional list in the Orakept, and all we've done for the Ogham Grove is place them around a circle. And a circle is 360 degrees, 20 trees, each has 18 degrees. That's 360 degrees. So it's a simple thing. It's just a equally spaced trees, and in a circle is the Ogham Grove. But anyone saying there's no such thing as a tree calendar, well, the evidence is the Book of Ballymote, which is 1390. There's no earlier evidence. It's the oldest we can go. The contention then is the Briatharogaim, the word kennings, and we don't even have to worry about that just yet, because the word kennings for the birch tree are almost perfect. The first word kenning is withered foot with fine hair. So that's 5 words, but in Irish it's just 2 words. Withered foot with fine hair is the English translation of the word kenning. So all of the word kennings are 2 words. It's just a quick memory thing. So in Gaelic, whatever, I can't pronounce it, in Gaelic, 2 words meant withered foot with fine hair. The second Briatharogaim from the Book of Ballymote for Beth is greyest of skin, and probably relates to silver birch and the silveriness of the birch tree, which isn't always silvery shiny. Sometimes it's grey and mottled. But uniquely, the birch tree has its silvery texture, and then near the bottom where its trunk is going into the ground, it's very fissured and darker and kind of cracked. So that's the withered foot. And then the fine branches of the silver birch hang like hair. They're very fine. They blow in the wind, a bit like weeping willow. You know, they're very flexible and feminine looking, like long hair. The third Briatharogaim, which comes later, it's not in the Book of Ballymote, so it's 16th or 17th century, says beauty of the eyebrow. Now, I don't know what to make of that. It's a later word kenning by somebody. Beauty of the eyebrow. You must make of it what you will. Maybe the catkins of the birch tree are a perfect eyebrow. Who knows what idea was behind that? And then the Orakept uses the first Briatharogaim, the one of Moraine MacMoen, and glosses it. And it does this with every single letter in the Ogham, every single fedder, and it equates Beth with the birch tree. So it takes the first word kenning, withered foot with fine hair, and then it says in the Orakept, of withered trunk, fair haired the birch. So that's it. That's all you've got, you know, and very similar to the runes, where, you know, like there's a rune for the sun or there's a rune for cattle, and what does that mean in a reading? So this is all you've got if you want to get traditional to the original word kennings. So you've got a pouch of twigs and you've pulled the birch twig out, and you can go right back to the medieval days and say, well, withered foot with fine hair, greyest of skin, beautiful eyebrows. And then, what does that mean in a reading? How are you going to use that in a reading? What advice is it giving you? What prediction is it giving you? So obviously you need more. So that's why I referred to building a bank of symbols. So when you hear just the word Beth or Beith, there's a whole load of symbols in your mind that twig of the birch tree then represents in a reading. And the trigger for you might be withered foot with fine hair, or it might be beauty of the eyebrow. But these are simple mnemonic memory triggers to call upon the bank of symbols that you've already learnt. So what can we add to the bank of symbols of death or birch, beith? So if you look at the bottom of this diagram, you see the yew tree. And the yew tree is the conclusion of the Ogham grove. That's the winter solstice position. The midpoint of the yew tree has 9 degrees before winter solstice and then 9 degrees afterwards, roughly 18 days. And then the sun, after traveling through the days of yew, the winter solstice, begins a brand new cycle. And the sun goes from the days of yew into the days of the birch tree. So that's where we are today. Today is that moment of the sun transitioning from the yew tree to the birch tree. And so energetically, after the winter solstice, the birch is the first tree of the Ogham, so it's representing new beginnings. It's also representing a brand new year. From this moment onwards, the daylight hours increase day by day. It has this fresh, new, rising energy to it. And it's driving the energy up through the first Acma. It will drive the energy to the rowan tree, to the alder tree, to Imbolc, to the willow tree, and to the ash tree, to the spring equinox. It has this rising up energy, like sap rising, and the first buds appearing, the quickening of spring, the snowdrops coming out of the ground. This moment, birch is that trigger, that driving essence. So you can put that in your bank of symbols. When you grab your birch twig, it represents those new beginnings. We can get a bit more esoteric with it too, by understanding its botanical nature. So in 2023, we spent the year looking at the Ogham grove and its herbalism. So you can go and look for birch tree Ogham grove 2023 and you'll find out about that lore. Almost unique to the birch tree is the fly agaric mushroom. It's a symbiont to the birch tree. It belongs to one other tree primarily, and that's the pine tree. So pine begins the 4th Acma, birch begins the 1st Acma. But connecting the entire forest under the ground is the mycelium network between tree roots and shrubs and fungi and mushrooms. This underground web allows the forest to communicate with itself and send water and nutrients and warn of parasites and bacteria. It's a big information highway below the ground, of which the fly agaric mushroom is just one of many fruits. Now, here's a thing then. Here's the kind of lore of the birch tree. The birch tree historically is known as a pioneer tree. A long time ago, Europe was just ice. There was an ice age. You know, the British Isles were just covered in ice. And as the ice age began to melt, the first trees spread upwards from southern Europe to northern Europe. And those first trees are the pioneer trees. They're the first trees to take root in a virgin landscape. The pioneer trees of the British Isles are birch, pine, and juniper. Juniper, for whatever reason, isn't in the Ogham, but pine and birch are. Now, the birch tree, as the ice melted, the birch trees would take root into the new virgin landscape, and their unique quality of their very fine branches and bark and their catkins crumble very easily. They're quite a short-lived tree, but they wither their leaves and their twigs, and this becomes the beginnings of the soil of the forest floor that allows other trees to follow. So the first, they're like the scouts, if you like, you know, the birch trees are going out, pine trees as well, and they're creating the first forest floor. And along with that is the fly agaric mushroom of the mycelium, is part of that web and nutritious forest soil that allows the rest of the trees to emigrate into Northern Europe. So it's really interesting that of all the trees in the Ogham, the birch is the first tree. That's interesting in itself that it is the first tree. And its lore then is intimately connected with the fly agaric mushroom, which can be eaten, but it's very toxic, has to be prepared properly. But its main use, really, historically, is shamanic. It's a visionary thing, you know, for special potions that shaman would use, you know. So you're venturing into virgin landscape, brand new beginnings with the tools or the ingredients to do vision questing. It's very interesting. Again, these are things you can put in your bank of symbols for Beth, birch tree. Now, in 2023, we looked at the herbalism. Just very quickly, I looked at it last night to refresh my own memory. There are 3 symbiont fungi with the birch tree. There's something called the birch polypore bracket mushroom, has loads of health benefits. There's a famous fungi called chaga, popular with Native American Indians. Chaga has lots of health benefits and it comes from the birch tree. And there's the fly agaric mushroom as well. And the tree itself, its leaves and catkins and twigs and bark can be drank as a tea. You know, it's a cleansing tonic and good for lots of things. So if you're interested in that herbalism to put into your bank of symbols, that's there in the 2023 video. That's the picture for it. You'll find it on YouTube. So birch tree medicine 2023 Ogham Grove. So we've also explored the mythology of the birch tree, and the main deity, and we are in the realms of neo-paganism, although there's lots of intelligent logic behind it. But the deity that best corresponds with the birch tree is a goddess called Ellen of the Ways. So I did this icon a long time ago now. It's got the birch trees in it, it's got the fly agaric mushrooms in it, and it's got the antlered goddess Ellen. Now, here's the romantic mythology of that, is that as the ice melts away and the first birch trees are there and the fly agaric mushrooms are below the birch trees, the reindeer are the mammal that follow and eat the fly agaric mushrooms. And that leads up to the Sami culture of Finland, where the shaman will drink reindeer urine because the toxins are taken out by the reindeer, and you can get the visionary stuff from the reindeer wee-wee, you know. So this led to the ancient European deer goddess knowledge that becomes Ellen of the Ways. Now, I've already done videos about that. You can look for them on the YouTube video as well. A goddess with antlers, there's only one female deer that has antlers, and that's reindeer. You know, and there are figurines from Celtic, Druidic Gaul of the 3rd century of women with antlers. there's one in this drawing in the lower portion, and it's an actual figurine that is kept at the British Museum. It was found in France, and it's sort of the 4th century Romano-Celtic. Anyway, Ellen of the Ways fits best with the birch tree lore. But in 2024, we went round the grove looking at gods and goddesses for each tree. So there's this one for the birch tree and about Ellen of the Ways, but also about other goddesses, primarily, that correspond with the birch tree and its time of year. Its time of year is now during the time of Capricorn. In that classical world, Greece and Rome, they had pantheons of gods and goddesses that corresponded with signs of the zodiac. So the goddess that corresponded with Capricorn in the classical world was a goddess called Hestia, and also a goddess called Vesta. And they're goddesses of the sacred flame. The Vestal virgins keep this perpetual flame burning, a lot like the nuns in Ireland that kept a forever flame burning with Bridget at Kildare, this idea of a never-ending fire. Is told out in the Ogham Grove with those kind of ideas. So going back to the winter solstice is the rebirth of the sun. And then the very first tree, the birch, and the word birch actually means shining bright. So you got the winter solstice, rebirth of the sun, the tree that means shining bright. And then a goddess called Ellen, and Ellen or Elaine or Eileen in different cultures, and in Greece, Ellen means a ray of sunlight. So you've got the rebirth of the sun at the winter solstice, you've got the shining bright tree, and then you've got a goddess corresponding with Capricorn and the sacred fire flame with a name that means ray of sunlight, who then carries the sun's energy to the rowan tree, which is the tree of the goddess Bridget. And the main symbol of Bridget is her eternal flame of the sisters at Kildare and all of that. So there's this amazing poetry then that, as much as it's neo-paganism, these are modern pattern findings. You have the rebirth of the sun at winter solstice, you have a brand new cycle around the Ogham Grove, and the birch is carrying that rising energy, and that energy that's going to go to the rowan tree and Imbolc and generate the land into pushing up the snowdrops and pushing out the buds and the catkins. It's got that rising of what I call the light of the land, the fire of the land. So we'll cut it there. So I just want to take you back to the authentic medieval word kennings. So you've got your pouch of twigs, you shuffle around and you pull out a twig, and it's your birch twig. And the original word kenning is going to just say withered foot with fair hair, fine hair, greyest of skin. It's telling you what you already know. It's the birch tree. There's nothing new there. And then beauty of the eyebrow, shining, radiant brow, who knows? And then the tree list from the Book of Ballymote of withered trunk, fair head, the birch. For me, that is sparse. It doesn't give me enough information to do a reading. What enables me to use my Ogham for a reading is my bank of symbols, which we've glimpsed. And so this is what we're sharing now. Readings work because it's your inner world, your inner voice talking to you through your dreams and visions. And it can only talk to you through your dreams and visions through your bank of symbols that you've already acquired about the birch tree. And then when you pull out your twig and you think greyest of skin or withered foot, that's enough to trigger the memory of the fly agaric mushroom, the memory of the birch tree being a pioneer tree, the possible connection with the ancient deer goddess of the land, or the driving force of the light of the land to Imbolc and the renewal of spring. I'll stop the presentation and you can put your microphones on and we can share our ideas about Beth, the birch tree.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So this year, we're going to go back to the original word kennings of each Ogham. And some of them are trees, some of them aren't, and we'll deal with them as we come to them. But the aura kept has them all as trees, and fid and feder means tree as well. So with that said, let's share ideas about the birch tree.
So first thing that came to mind as you were talking is that in yoga, you have yoga philosophy, you have the eyebrow center.
Oh.
And so I was wondering about the eyebrow center, beauty of the eyebrow actually linking to the eye of vision, which then links into the fly agaric. And then the other thing is that with Ellen of the Ways, who I work with in my grove, I always think that Ellen lights the way because you by following the migration paths, whether it's the migration paths of the deer through time across the landscape, but also you then have the migration paths. We can follow the rhythm of the seasons and where the winds are moving with the migration paths of the birds and the different animals that kind of give us a deeper understanding of how the energy moves through the land. So that's what came to mind as you were talking, that sort of, yeah.
Talia, can I ask you then, just hypothetically, if you were doing a reading and you put a birch twig, what prediction or advice would it give?
Well, I would say that for a new adventure, for stepping out into the unknown to a new project, you've actually got the guidance there is that the vision is, so you've got the guidance for the vision, for opening the eye of vision, but that actually one way you might do that is to understand, depending what that project was, you might understand the timing, the natural timing of the rhythm of the seasons, or you could look at Ellen to sort of say, well, yeah, I suppose, what's the bigger picture within which this project is happening? So it's a guide, it's a visionary guide to help you step forward into the unknown to create something new. And you have all the tools there. So it's understanding that. And it's that light of illumination, isn't it?
The knots that you get on the tree trunk of a birch tree are often described as looking like eyes.
Yeah.
They're kind of
yeah.
Jessica shaped, aren't they?
Yeah. I was going to say that
coming
because
out of the darkness.
Aspen, sorry.
Hang on, Amy.
Sorry.
Because there's a lot of us, if you put your hand up, I'll know
I can't find my thing that allows me to put the hand
reaction.
up. So
No, put your real hand up. Don't worry about the
I did. Here's my hand.
If I see you waving, I'll remember to call you. So, Amy.
Thank you. I was going to say that the birch tree in America, the birch tree resembles the aspen tree a little bit with the trunk and the what kind of bark it has, and the aspen tree has eyes on it. I have many photos of aspen tree eyes, and I was wondering if maybe that the birch tree is similar, and that's what made me think of eyes.
I know in previous videos, Bridget, who's here, has made the observation that on either side of the yew tree is aspen and birch, and they almost look like two white pillars either side of the yew tree winter solstice, and they kind of like siblings in a way, the way they look. Andy, and then Annie.
Yeah, well spotted. Yeah, I also was out today, came across birches, wasn't doing it intentionally, but loads of aspen. We were up next to the River Findhorn, and yeah, I was looking at the eyes. That was how I identified the aspen. And yeah, so it's interesting that this aspen birch thing came up for me as well as it did for Amy today.
Annie?
Yeah, I just wanted to add for anyone who's starting to think about these things that I use a lot of memes and I love the old Briatharogams as well, but the word birth is very similar to the word birch, and so it really works for me too when I'm doing a reading to think about birth in the beginning. And I loved everything that Talia said. That was really, really great about stepping out in the new, getting support. You know, it's support for your stepping out.
And it's a walking from the darkness into the light. And when you think about it, the female reindeers are they don't lose their antlers. The males do, but the females do not. So that's how the herd follows them. And they have on their four, before the antlers, they're above their eyebrows, are these hard knots of bone, is where they stem from. And it is almost like the third eye.
Yeah, antlers are like radiant brow, aren't they? They're like an
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to
Right.
step on the radiant brow.
Wendy, are you waving?
Yes, I just wanted to, well, we were talking about the herbal aspects that both birch bark and certain fungus like birch polypore when dried are really good fire starters. So people would often use those or collect them and keep them over winter in order to start fires or keep them for traveling fires. So again, is that thing with keeping the flames going or bringing a new fire into life. So that struck me as well. So she keeps the fire for the spring. So that's just another little thing.
This is just modern paganism, or it's just me really, but the idea that Ellen means a ray of sunlight or sunbeam, I think a lot of sovereignty goddesses in the Celtic world are triple aspected. So if you think of three rays of sunlight or a triple Ellen, that's the symbol of the Arwen. You know, it's Ellens, the light shining outwards. Rosemary.
Yeah, so I always think there's an exchange. By the way, Wendy, I very often keep birch skin in my smoker, you know, for the bees.
Yes.
So I always think there needs to be an exchange. So I started thinking about the fact that the fly agaric is there. What does the fly agaric give to the silver birch? And the silver birch, we use the water to drink. And I felt that it's overlooked, that marriage between, it's not a mistake that they grow by those trees. So when you think about the mycelium, how the different fungi come up for protection and for fighting, you know, things that are wrong for that tree. And for some reason, I started thinking about Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate is above Avebury, Frome, that area, above Longleat, over there.
That's in Wiltshire in England. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
That's right.
Yes. And there are birch there. And I tried to look it up while you were talking. And I can see the birch trees overlooking, and they're like sentinels. So it's kind of like a whole circle that the eyes are there and they're watching, but they're also giving us wonderful medicine, as they do, the birch. And it's interesting that you said about how the trees that came up were the birch, the pine, and the juniper.
They're the pioneers.
Yeah. And the pioneers are the ones that lead the way. I don't know, this sounds a bit muddly fuddly, but it made sense in my head that the fly agaric is actually giving to the tree.
Lucy,
And
sorry, is Lucy got your hand up?
Yeah.
Les did. I know Les did. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Lucy.
No, it's fine. I was just going back to when you were thinking about if we pulled the birch, what would that mean? And for me, it's that whole new beginning things, but birch are quite short-lived, and it's the fact that they improve the soil. So if I was to pull that in a reading, for me, it's like it's setting you on the path to something new. But it might be fertilizing ideas that you might not have had already. It's not necessarily like you think of an oak is something solid that's around for a long time. The birch is quite short-lived comparatively, and it's more about, yes, it's starting you off perhaps on something new, but it's not going to necessarily see that journey through to the end with you, but it's going to fertilize other ideas and maybe take you in a different direction to what you maybe had planned. That was just my thought, really.
I like that kind of
Wow.
I like that inner fire trigger magic that it has, that it can instigate something and trigger something or quicken it and get it going. Amy?
Well, I was thinking after rosemary, and I really like what Lucy said too. That was excellent. But rosemary, I was thinking when you were talking about, the pioneer trees lead the way. I was like, okay, the reindeer also lead the way, and I'm not just talking about Rudolph. The female reindeer leads the herd, and the fly agaric, the way I see it, is okay. It can induce visions for the shaman, and to my way of thinking, the shaman is the leader of the tribe. He's not maybe not the war chief, but he's the visionary. And so, to my way of thinking, the fly agaric fits in with all of that initial visionary symbolization. It's all.
Ebdi?
I was thinking of, and I've been in this exact situation in the winter in a dark forest in a maybe half moonlight. What stands out are not the dark trees, not the oaks or the older trees. It's the birch, it's the light color. And you can look up and see on a hillside all of them standing there lighting the way. And it's reflective off the moonlight. So, as a new venture, that would be leading your way. And it's very interesting to me that the reindeer urine is purified by the reindeer and junk, and then the vision comes, the newness, that stepping off position. That's big there.
Anyone else? Talia?
Yeah, because thinking about that, following on from MD, because there's always that element with birch, isn't there, of cleansing. If you've ever had a birch broom to sweep things away, and that maybe actually you also have to get the vision, you have to clear away, to cleanse, so that you can use it. Because if you were to just take that sort of the fly agaric without it, then it would have poisons and it has toxins. But you've got to actually do a process there before you can actually really use it and gain the vision. So there's that sense, isn't there, as well? And perhaps that's also the thing of that Lucy was talking about the which I loved actually, which was about the sort of it creates a soil for other growth, for other trees to grow that are more long-lived. That in a way there's some sense that it starts a process, a transmutation.
Fertilization of, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't have the mycelium network without the soil, can you? That's the bed of it all.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I saw a hare as well when I was with the birches today, running away from me. So I thought
He didn't want to be
maybe
your dinner.
no. Yeah, maybe the hare could be linked with the birch.
Okay, then. I'll stop recording and we'll do our meditation to the birch tree. For the new people, we meditate and then share some ideas afterwards, but we do that privately. So I'll stop recording.